my story in short, it wasn't great, actually. Well, to me, it wasn't great. It was kind of horrific. Sort of mental, physical abuse growing up, being locked in a room, homelessness, fell into alcohol, fell into cocaine, kind of felt really lost. I didn't know which box I fit in. And that's it. It wasn't great for me, really. And I just got to a point where that's it. I just keep my head above water. Like nothing seemed to make sense. Everyone else's life was great. And even I try and copy their life and it just didn't work for me. But one thing that almost like I can look back now, at the time, it didn't seem that way. But growing up for me, a lot of it was about money. Like society told me that if I had money that I'd be okay. And coming from a childhood where like my mum was a seamstress, so we didn't have a lot of money there. My dad was a drinker and gambler. So to me, it's like, okay, money's the safety net. So I fell into a career of estate agency, worked hard at it, done really well, actually. I worked for a corporate company for 15 years, was in the top 10 branches out of 750 offices, done so well. And in the end, it was a case, well, why am I doing this for a corporate? I'm going to go and set up my own business. So I did set up my own business with another person and we flied. We were number one in the area out of 67 estate agents, started earning an incredible amount of money. I could luxury holidays. I'd buy an oxygen machine for £700. Christ, anything I wanted, it was there on tap. I didn't have to worry about money. But the crazy part is I was never happy, still wasn't happy, and I think it's an innocent misunderstanding where society says, if you've got money, you'll be okay, but kind of really no one tells you how much money you need. And I'll be honest, I just started behind this mask here. And that's what I loved about estate agency. I could go in there and put this act on, and they say estate agents, isn't it? They kind of have this way about them. And it is, I could go in and I could put my sales face on and that was me. But behind that, I was just sinking further and further. Failed relationships. Twice I'd wanted to check out. Remember being on the phone to like 999 and I was like, these thoughts are coming in, I'm scared. So 2 failed marriages, like friends just started falling away, not because of an argument or anything, but it became too difficult for them to be around me and see me suffering all the time. Then I came across an understanding called the 3 principles, and through a friend of mine whose life she completely transformed. And I was curious about it because I tried everything: CBT, hypnotherapy, NLP, Reiki, the gym. I mean, honestly, anything you can think of, I tried it, right? I spent thousands. And there was this thing called the 3 principles. And I tried to Google it. She's like, you need to do it. And she'd scared me because she changed so much. I was like, nah. I said, not interested. I'd Googled it. I couldn't really find anything about this thing that she'd been on. So I was like, I don't know what you've had, but there's nothing on the internet about it. I'm really not that sure about it. And then there was a 1-day course and I went on, and it wasn't about the 3 principles, but that was weaved in within it. There was a Scottish man on a video that I really didn't understand what on earth he was going on about. What happened, I had a friend of mine called Rob. At the time, he gave me this book called The Enlightened Gardener. And I came home and I read this book. And I was kind of really calm at the time. And you know what? Something in that book shook me. I saw something that for the first time was huge for me, was that my mum and dad, my parents did love me. And I saw in real time how much pain that they were in. So they could only project out to me. They just didn't have the love to give to me because they were in so much pain. And that was huge for me, because up until that time, I thought that I was unworthy, that I was damaged, I was broken, that there wasn't anything about me that could be loved. And so really up until that point, there were two really big attachments in my life. One attachment to money, and the other attachment was to wanting to be loved, to feel that. So what I saw in this book, it kind of had a little bit of a domino effect. I still didn't really understand it. I couldn't really make sense of it. But for me, there was something there that seemed to resonate, that seemed to be true. It's like I kind of knew it. It sounded familiar and felt familiar for me. That's it. I got curious about this. And at the time I worked with the homelessness demographic as well, because I'd always, obviously having suffered from homelessness, working within an estate agency, obviously there's those that can't afford a home. And it's funny, I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and we were just saying, you know, there seemed to be a realness about someone on the street. There wasn't the attachment to money. It's just almost like what you saw is what you got. You know, it felt real. And so at that time, there was a lot of street outreach going on. And I was like, great, they can have this, because I'd already by that point started to see that I wasn't broken. Anyway, so then I'm going into the estate agents, and over time, like myself and my business partner, we just started getting further and further apart. I became less interested in the money. Saw that money wasn't sustainable, it was made up. You know, that we could take a house on the market, I could make up a figure for this house, not make up, obviously, but kind of tell someone this is what your house is worth. I don't know, say 400,000. You'd have 10 people saying, no, I don't, they didn't even want the house for nothing. I just don't even want to make an offer. Then someone will come in and pay 400,000. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And it is, we just fabricate the value of money almost. And I started to see that more and more, you know, like, Christ, okay, that person, like someone came up and they just spent like 30 grand on a car. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I wouldn't even have that if you gave that to me for free. I wouldn't drive that, you know. So the attachment to money, or what society had told me, that was a belief that I'd grown up with. That started to fall away. And something else, whilst I was going through this journey with the three principles, something else more beautiful started unfolding there. Like, hadn't realised how angry I actually was with my parents and my past, like really angry. You know, I just used to say, wine's a devil drink, or I can't drink vodka. So I turned into a bit of a side. I blame it on something else, or it's that person, or this or that. Like the anger just started to fall away. So there was like so many different layers there of stuff that over time, parts of it just started falling away. And my life started becoming more simpler. I started having space. I wasn't analysing everything from 360 degrees. And I kind of like just couldn't be bothered to think after a while. It would just, layers started falling away. So I'd wanted to do this, offer this to those affected by homelessness, because like looking deeper in this direction, I saw so much research, different projects worldwide, time and time and time again, no exceptions, nobody's broken, 100%. So I wanted to offer this with homelessness, introduced to a couple of incredible ladies called Liliana and Susan, who were working in the prison system, and they offered to come and facilitate with me. And first of all, so being an estate agent, I knocked on a lot of doors, and I was used to doors being shut in my face. I didn't take no for an answer. To the point, I think there was a blanket conversation went out that if this woman approached, because I was this crazy estate agent running around Hertfordshire telling everyone that the homeless aren't broken and that I've got something that will sort their mental health. So really, like, kind of with hindsight, I look back and I'm like, yeah, that might have looked a little bit crazy, right? Anyway, so in the end, I was just like, do you know, let's just crack on and do it. And we just started programs in 2017 doing that with people that are really suffering. The CEO at the charity in Hertfordshire, one of the major charities, in fact, they were the ones that I hadn't knocked on their door. I hadn't knocked on their door, and the CEO found out about it, called up, and that started with a year's worth of meetings. And he needs some legal framework. And I was done with this corporate, this ego, this kind of money thing. I was so far removed from that. And I wanted to stay down here because I was curious about what was happening here in my life, in those around me, in those that we were working with. So we had a year, he said, okay, we can go into partnership with you. Wow. I was like, all right, yeah, okay, let's do that. I went into partnership with them in September 2018. Then we had the virus, like COVID showed up. I'll be honest, my journey, like my life has just become incredible in so many remarkable ways. There isn't enough hours to be able to explain how many gifts have come into my life and how my life has changed. But it was enough for me to know that I didn't want to do estate agency. There was something else more valuable here that was showing up. So like, I think it was before the virus had even hit, and I'd had the conversation with my business partner at the time. I just said, look, it's not my future. There's something else that's unfolding here in my life. And, you know, my life was simple and it felt right. It wasn't about the money. I didn't even know how it would show up, how it would look like. I didn't know anything about it, but it just felt right to go down that path. And the virus hit, and it was like I had this massive tannoy screaming out at me. This is it now. You can do it now. You can leave. It's almost like that's it. So there's something that came through. It was so loud, you know, and I'm sure, you know, you've had it, right, where this knowing feeling comes through. And I trusted that so much over time. And I just thought, I'm just going to go with this and see what happens. So we did. I didn't actually do a lot. I sat back because there was a lot of noise outside. We had Coventry University Research Centre, had a meeting that had been set up by other individuals. They were like, yeah, we're interested in this, because at the moment within the UK, a lot of mental health and well-being points to the environment, which is still an outside-in experience. What the three principles done, it points to something innate that's within us. We can't see it. Almost like the psychological backdrop of how we experience life through thought, consciousness, like to be aware, mind, all the stuff that we can't see, you know, and that to me was huge, because, you know, it is when we go to school, like they teach us about the stuff we can see, right? We know all about that. However, no one explains like this incredible, universal, perfect human design. That's part of our human design. That's universal for every single one of us. And that's like, if I kind of like, for me, a big jump or a big shift is that when I was in all that pain here, I was operating from a place that I'd made up. It was a beliefs that I had, like the attachment to money and the attachment I needed in a relationship. All these beliefs and labels that had been attached to me and that I attached to myself. And then I had a little bit of experience, you know, like homelessness for me at 16. Loved it. Incredible. Don't normally tell people that. Like within the sector, they're like, Caroline, you don't really talk too much to that. And I said, no, I actually had a really good experience from it. You know, but all of that, I operated from that and this little bit of intellect that I had. And I sometimes had that little bit of a knowing feeling come through, like tap me on the shoulder, but push it away and operate back from this space. And what this does is guide you back to that perfect part of our human design. And now that it's starting to become like, and as well, you kind of have to let go of who you thought you were, who you believed to be true. Like all of that, you have to be prepared to say, all right, you know, I'm going to park that because that might not be true, and be open-minded, because the other part, you can't see that. We know it's there, but we can't see that. So the outcomes that come from this is like, everyone like who sees the research, they're like, you know, it's remarkable. Why is it sustainable? You know, because that's who we are. And for centuries, so many different religions, other practices like yoga, different religions, meditation, it all points to that formless, it all points in the same direction. But there's something about the three principles that has stirred emotion. It stirred something there. So much so, programs that we run in Hertfordshire, that we now have got funding and support from the NHS, you know, which is the first in the UK. And I mean, that's huge, a beautiful gift. It's amazing, because just to have that, it's almost like it opens the doors, whereas people before were kind of saying, what's going on over there? Whereas now, this, to have that, it's almost giving permission that people can explore that side of our human design. So yeah, that's kind of where my journey is at the moment. To be able, like, I spend more of my life operating from this part I can't see, and trusting that more, like wisdom, thought. I'm aware that I think, you know, no one told me that, you know. It's like I thought every thought that came in, I had to start having a little party with it, you know, enjoying it. But there's so much that comes from that. I'm not saying that I will never practice estate agency again, you know, but because who knows? I just, you know what, I'm in a place at the moment where life, there's a simplicity to this. I'm trusting in like the unknown. I'm not even fazed by it. I'm curious about it. You know, it's this pandemic that we have. And there was an incredible article that was written by a gentleman called Professor Anthony Kessel, who's the clinical director at NHS HQ, in December. He said, like, is this a pandemic about the virus or a pandemic about uncertainty? It's almost like a blind spot that's here. That society is almost trying to point everyone in that direction to create fear. However, if we look pre-pandemic, I know for me, for one, before I came across this understanding, I thought I had special powers. I thought I knew what was happening in the future. Like someone would say, well, when am I going to move house? I tell them, well, I think you're going to move then. Well, when's the solicitor going to do that? Oh, they'll do it by then. So I didn't just think I had special powers that I could see into the future. I thought I had special powers that I knew what everyone else was going to be doing in the future. And it's a human impossibility to know what there is in ahead of us, you know? So that was always there, but it's almost like a blind spot. It's no different now. We knew nothing before what would happen. We thought we did, but we didn't. It's no different to now, you know?